Hello and welcome back to my channel. This week I'm celebrating getting 700 subscribers, but I'm also celebrating the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. Now I know there isn't that much interest in Doctor Who on this channel, but I love Doctor Who. It's been a huge part of my life ever since I was about 3 years old, and I've got to mark this anniversary in some way. So what I'd like to do today is choose my favourite Target book covers. I used to collect these as a kid. I used to go and buy them at W.H. Smith. It was always a special moment buying these books. And the first one I ever read was The Mutants, actually, which has a great cover. I didn't really like the story much when I saw it on VHS, but I loved the book. And I used to read them religiously. But actually the thing I most liked about them, I used to like laying them out on the living room floor and just looking at the wonderful covers. So I thought today what I would do is I would pick my 10 favourites. But then when I did this list, what I discovered was that the vast majority of them were all by the same artist, Chris Achilleos, who is this Greek artist who came to live in England. And he did the vast majority of the early covers for the books, and he did a brilliant job, a wonderful, iconic artist. He could take elements from the stories and make something really beautiful and memorable, from the imagery. So what I've done instead is I've done this. I've done my top 10 Chris Achilleos covers, followed by my top 10 covers by all the other artists. How about that? So let's kick off with my top 10 Chris Achilleos. And at number 10, oh, actually, I just wanted to show you my number 11th, actually, which was the Auton Invasion. I had to include the Auton Invasion. It's number 11. I love it because it looks like the John Pertwee and the Brigadier, they're sort of saying, what is it? Well, it looks like an octopus, sir. Bloody hell. It's just the way that he's positioned the characters, it looks like they're sort of peering at this octopus going, what's going on? That cover used to obsess me when I was a child. And the octopus in the series was never as good as that octopus. Anyway, my 10th choice is Doctor Who and the Zabi. I've got to pick one of the 3 original iconic covers. Now, most people would pick the Daleks, which is one of the great images of the series, or the Crusaders, but I'm going to pick the Zabi. I really like this cover. I'm looking at it in the Target book here. I like the cover because it gives such dignity to those creatures in the web planet, which they don't have any dignity on screen. The Zabi they're bumping into the cameras, and the Monopoly have got that sort of weird movement that Rosalind Winters taught them. But on this book, they look beautiful. And Chris Achilleos gives them real dignity, and it's a really atmospheric cover. I like the introduction of these things that Chris Achilleos has. He always introduces a bit of space. There's some planets with auroras around them in the background and bits of energy. That's what I like about it. So I think that's a great cover from Chris Achilleos, making a very weak story into a very beautiful one. Now at number 9, one of the things that fascinates me about Chris Achilleos, he takes very simple elements, but he makes something really memorable out of them. Now the case in point is Doctor Who and the Cybermen. This image could not be more simple, right? What it is, you've got a Cyberman, you've got a picture of Patrick Troughton and a planet behind them, and that is it. I cannot tell you what an impression that image made on me as a child. It haunted me. Just those simple elements. The monster looking upwards, the Doctor looking downwards, a bit depressed, the teardrops in the eyes of the Cybermen. That's all you needed. You didn't need action. There was something so iconic and atmospheric about that. He did this a lot. I mean, like if you look at Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen, very simple. You've got the Yeti, you've got that photograph of Jamie and Victoria looking across, the Himalayas, and then you've got Patrick Troughton looking sternly at you. Again, that image haunted me as a kid. It was so powerful. I don't know how Achilleos did that. He made something out of nothing, really. At number 8, now this is a case in point, and this is the most iconic of these images that Achilleos created, is Doctor Who and the Ice Warriors. I think this is one of the great images of Doctor Who. It's very simple. There's the companion screaming her heart out, and above them looms this great ice warrior. And I particularly like those little bits of energy round his paws. I don't know why, that just makes it, and that's a very Chris Achilleos touch. But what more iconic image could you want of Doctor Who than that? It's everything you need. An image that is burned into my brain. And by the way, I still love that story. Everyone says it's boring these days. I think it's one of the greats. Now at number 7, this is a good example of how Achilleos takes a very simple idea and makes it work, is the Web of Fear. Very simple idea. You've got Patrick Troughton's Doctor looking down, and he's got a web around him. He's caught in a web. The monster, the Yeti, its eyes fixating on a soldier who happens to be Staff Sergeant Arnold, who, of course, in the story is the stooge of the great intelligence. He becomes possessed. So all the elements of the story are there. Very simple. 4 elements. The Doctor in a web, the monster, the traitor. That's it. And it, you know, when you're reading it as a child, that cover takes you through. It sort of anchors the whole story in one image. I love the way Achilleos does that. But Chris Achilleos changed his style, and towards the end of his run in the series, he developed more action-involved pictures, which took scenes from the actual story. And I quite like these approach. And my favourite, well, probably one of my favourites, at number 6, is Planet of the Daleks. Now look at this cover. It's so colourful. It's action-packed. It's actually a scene where the Doctor and one of his friends just chuck a Dalek in a pool, I think, if I remember rightly. So it's not a very action-packed scene on TV, but the way Achilleos does it with these meteors going through the air for no apparent reason, and bits of energy as well. Well, they're back, aren't they, those bits of energy? I just think this is a wonderful, vibrant, colourful cover. It's the kind of cover that makes you want to... It sends you to the TV to watch an old Doctor Who story. I love it to pieces. At number 5, now this is an image that, oh God, when I look at it, it takes me back to my childhood. Doctor Who and the Loch Ness Monster, which was the title given to Terror of the Zygons. Look at that image. So simple. There's Tom Baker right in the centre of it, with a sort of Looney Tunes, What's All Folks design behind him. Then on the left is a Loch Ness Monster, and on the right is Broton, who seems to be looking at Tom Baker's scarf going, oh, what a lovely scarf, what a lovely texture it's got. Oh, wouldn't it be nice? And that used to obsess me as a kid, that Broton had taken a fancy to Tom Baker's scarf. I can't tell you, that image takes me right back to being about 5 or 6 years old. It has such a powerful imprint on my soul. So thanks to Chris Achilleos for that. In 4th place, now look at this image, Carnival of Monsters. The TV story has got nothing like this. This fantastic dinosaur, you know, raining down on this ship in the ocean with a rather concerned John Pertwee in front of it. Oh my God, what a fantastic image. Honestly, the special effect in the TV series is nothing like that. So, you know, Achilleos really used his imagination. But what a fantastic cover. And somehow the yellow framing and the green lettering of the Doctor Who insignia really helps it. I love that image so much. In 3rd place, now this is one of the later covers, and my God, this is one of the fantastic images of Doctor Who. The Dalek invasion of Earth. Look at that cover. Doesn't that just make you want to watch Doctor Who and think it's the greatest thing ever? What an action-packed cover. Okay, I admit, it's mostly based on the 1966 movie starring Peter Cushing. But look at that. You've got that guy, the Robo-Man at the front, who looks like he's an avatar of a totalitarian regime. Then you've got a flying saucer with lasers burning up London and a Dalek. Oh my God, it's so exciting, it's so action-packed. Nothing like the original black and white story, though I still think the original black and white TV story is better than the film, so take that. But I love that image so much. In 2nd place, Day of the Daleks. Now, to me, this image is the greatest of Achilleos' early iconic images, and this image sums up Doctor Who for me. An alien ape monster shooting his laser gun above an army of Daleks. In the middle is John Pertwee smiling benignly and arrogantly with total assurance, and beneath him is the universe. This kind of planet like a sun, shining like a sun with energy across space. I mean, that's Doctor Who. If that doesn't make you want to watch Doctor Who right now, I just don't know what will. That to me sums up the series. Absolutely. But there's still another Achilleos cover that is my favourite. And at number 1, the dinosaur invasion. Look at that image. That's my childhood. That's my imaginative world. 2 dinosaurs looming out of the fog, attacking the Doctor with his arm raised across his face to ward them off. Clack, the infamous sound effect. And then in the background, this blood-red haze, this late apocalyptic afternoon that London seems to be sinking into, the end of the world. What an incredible image that is. Oh my God, I just think that's one of the great images to come out of Doctor Who. Of course, the dinosaur effects in the story look nothing like that. They look more like the Chewits advert. but my God, I'll take that image every day. I think it's so beautiful. So thanks, Chris Achilles. Now look, there were so many. I'm sorry I didn't pick the Doomsday Weapon, the Sea Devils. There's so many great Chris Achilles covers, but those are the ones that stayed with me from being a child. So now let's look at the other covers by other artists. Okay, moving on to my top 10 by other artists. And at number 10, I simply had to pick this. It's got to be Death of the Daleks, as painted by Roy Knipe. Look at this image for an 8-year-old boy. A Dalek's head blowing up in massive Technicolor. This is the most exciting image I think I ever saw in a Doctor Who book. I simply just had to pick this as one of my favourite covers. It's fantastic. And in a similar vein, I had to pick Inferno by Nick Spender. Now look at this. There's no image of the Doctor or the Doctor's companion. There's just this guy in a lab coat looking like he's had a bad night on the town. But for some reason, it's a very exciting and strange image. It stayed with me. There was something about Inferno. You know, I didn't often find Doctor Who exciting. I liked watching it. It was fun, but it wasn't often exciting. But when I saw Inferno for the first time on VHS, that's one of the few times when Doctor Who really excited me. Even though I knew the end of the story, it still got to me. And so did this cover when I first saw it on a Target novel. And that's why I've picked it. Now at number 8, a bit of a controversial choice that not many people will go with. I'm picking Alistair Pearson's cover for the reprint of The Face of Evil. Couldn't be more simple, this cover, could it? But you know what it is? You get 2 Tom Bakers for the price of 1, and then in the middle is lovely Leela, my first fantasy female, with a smile on her face carrying a crossbow. Look, this is my list, it's my reasons. You can make your own list. But I just love this image. I just think, I just think it's great. And also what I like about it is I like the choice of darkness, the choice of blackness, the dark places of the inside, the id. This is an image that gets to what this story is about. The most complex, the most cerebral and satisfying science fiction story in Doctor Who. But it's often just treated as the story that introduces Leela. You know, the original cover, which I think was by Knipe, it's very nice, but it doesn't convey anything about what the story's about. But this shows a tormented Tom Baker in the darkness, which is getting closer to what the story's about. Very effective image, and doesn't Leela look absolutely lovely? My first fantasy female. What a great crossbow she's carrying. And number 7, this is another reprint, Andrew Skillet's picture for Planet of Evil, another favourite story of mine. Very simple image this, of Sorensen's crazy sort of Mr. Hyde persona peeking through some plants in this weird jungle world. I really like this image. I think it really gets to the core of the story and why it's so dark and gloomy and frightening. And I love those kind of little sort of butterfly, what are they, seed pods or butterflies or plants in the bottom left corner that convey the sort of mysteriousness of the jungle in the story. Really good image. I like Andrew Skillet as an artist. In the early 80s, everyone seemed obsessed by Andrew Skillet. I had 4 prints of his on my wall of the Daleks and the Cybermen. Do you remember those? I was very fond of him as an artist. He was the big Doctor Who artist at the time. In 6th place, now this is a very personal choice. Not many people may have picked this. But I'm going to pick John Geary's picture of The War Games, a favourite story of mine. Now this is an unusual cover in the Doctor Who range. It doesn't really fit with the others. Again, the Doctor and his companions are absent, and the figures of the Roman and the British officer are not at all similar to how they are in the story. And even though the TARDIS is there, this cover seems less like a sort of fantasy sci-fi cover. It seems more like the cover of a novel to me. You know, it's almost like a book about war through history. It gave it a sort of realism that wasn't there in a lot of the Doctor Who covers, and which I found I quite liked for this particular story. But just to give you an idea how different artists can take the same material, do a completely different painting in a completely different style, but still convey the nature of the story, look at Alistair Pearson's later cover for the reprint, which I also really like, which has got photorealistic portraits of all the people in it. A very simple, much more abstract cover, but it really gets to the heart of the story as well. I like the design of it. But so different to John Geary's original picture. But Geary's picture is one of those ones that stayed in my mind. You know, I like the TARDIS in it very much. In 5th place, now this is a good example of how an artist can take the theme of the story and represent it really beautifully and iconically. This is Andrew Skillet's cover for Snake Dance, and it's a snake, a huge snake, rising up out of the universe with its jaws hovering over a tiny planet in its power. You know, based on the little statuette that they find in the story. And of course, in the jaws of the snake in the story is the crystal. But here, Skillet has replaced it with the whole world of Manusa. Very simple, very beautiful, very powerful image that gets to the core of what the story is about. I really like that image. And it's an image from one of the great Doctor Who stories of all time that never gets its due. Very underrated story, I think. At number 4, we're going back to my childhood here, and one of my favourite stories as a kid, as it is now, The Deadly Assassin, as drawn by Mike Little. Now look at this. Imagine I'm a 6 and 7-year-old kid, I'm getting this book from W.H. Smith's, and there's that face of the dead master, very frightening image for a child. And he's hovering above the Doctor, who looks very broody and hemmed in by these Time Lords. But there's the detail of this book that really gets to you, is that the Master seems to be pouring blood over Tom Baker's head. That's the thing that gets to you as a kid. You don't notice that as an adult, but as a kid, that's such a powerful idea that the Master is kind of decomposing into his own blood, which is dripping over the Doctor. Such a powerful image that really gets to you. Mike Little also drew my number 3 cover, The Mask of Mandragora. I cannot tell you how much this particular image haunted me as a kid. I'm not picking it because of its brilliance as a work of art. I'm picking it because of the simple power it has. There's Tom Baker looking in pain in the middle, and around him those 4 grotesque golden masks that really scared me as a kid. I didn't really understand it because for some reason I was very young when the story went out and I didn't see it on television. I don't remember it. So this image kind of came like a bolt out of the blue to me, but it stayed with me. I find that image really haunting and I don't really know why. Now, in second place, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, is an image that I think most fans think is a crap. And this particular artist got a lot of flack for his book covers. He was called Peter Brooks, and he was one of the people who tried to take over from Chris Achilles at the start. But bear with me, I was 8 years old when I saw this image. And look at that giant octopus creature. It's bloody great. And there's a bit of comic book styling about it. Yes, it's Peter Brooks' cover for The Terror of the Autons. The actual octopus effect in the TV series is one of the worst, crappiest effects in Doctor Who history. It's so rubbish. But my God, that image, for an 8-year-old boy, I thought that was incredibly exciting. And it went with the black and white illustrations inside. A lot of people thought this was grotesque. Keith Miller, who was head of the DWAS at the time, thought it was absolutely rubbish. I think he said, yuck. But for an 8-year-old boy, this was the most exciting thing I'd ever seen. But at number 1, I didn't have any choice. I had to pick this image. One of the great images of Doctor Who for me. I'm going to pick Horror of Fang Rock by Jeff Cummins. A simple, brooding portrait of Tom in his bowler hat with the lighthouse behind him in the fog and in the dark. I can't tell you the impression that image made on me as a child, and still does to this day. I still think it's a beautiful cover. And I love the sort of slight impression of letters in Tom Baker's cheek. I just think that's the best portrait of Tom ever, and it is my favourite image from the Target book series. Very simple, very brooding, very atmospheric. So those are my choices of my top 10 covers. There were so many. Oh God, there were so many in my shortlist. I feel bad for missing them out. I know that there's many great images I missed. You know, the Talons of Wen Chiang, the mutants, the Doomsday Weapon. I'm sorry to miss out all those favourites, but those are the ones that have stayed with me. Please let me know your favourites below. And if I don't speak to you before, have a great 60th Doctor Who anniversary. Thanks very much.